Hey guys, I'm Lazy and I have played PoE for over 10 years now, and I want to talk about how to pick the best class and ascendancy for you in PoE 2. A huge disclaimer that you should not trust me or any content creators when they say which build, class, or ascendancy is the best, because we simply don't have enough information. However, with what we know so far, I will explain some of the criteria behind my logics, and I will review my pick of the class and ascendancy by the end of this video. If you have preference for any class or ascendancy that you like the visual or aesthetic of it, feel free to play it in early access and don't let me stop you. However, it's still important to consider the following criteria when choosing your class and ascendancy: bossing capabilities, mapping speed, defensive strengths, and class complexity. Now let's discuss why focusing on bossing or single target damage is one of the most important factors for progressing in the game. But let me start by playing you this clip from Mark, the game director of PoE 2.
One of the main challenges balancing boss fights in Path of Exile 2, especially compared to its predecessor, you have to, in a single attempt, reduce the boss from full life to 0 in order to then progress through. If a player cannot defeat them now, then they're stuck.
So you can see GGG take pride in their boss design, and the campaign aims to offer a unique soul-like experience. Yep, soul-like, not Diablo-like. And having only one chance to defeat each boss, you want to master the fight and defeat them in a single attempt, unlike PoE 1. Now, given this, playing as a range character, totem or dot damage will have a better advantage because you'll have higher boss damage uptime. And having higher uptime means stronger single target damage throughout the fight, and it will be pretty crucial since there will be so many bosses throughout the campaign. This is not to take anything away from the melee class style, because having good recovery is also good in boss fight as well, and for example, monk class or any class that have leech would help. But it's not really a given because you also need good damage to pair well with leech, and in the campaign your years might not be perfect, so there's that. Next, we'll talk about mapping and its importance. But first, let's hear two clips from Jonathan talking about mapping in the endgame. The first clip is from PoE 2 endgame reveal post-show with Ziggity.
There, like when I say 1 in 4 maps is a map boss, that doesn't mean that 1 in 4 maps you play as one, because obviously you can pick what content you're doing by exploring around.
You're picking your pathing and your path.
Exactly. So effectively, if you want to hunt the bosses, then that is the thing you can do. If you want to just do some mindless grinding for a while, you can do that too.
Alright, so now that we know 1 out of 4 map can contain a boss, however, you're not forced to do that content and can grind maps endlessly if you want. Let's hear that again from the man himself talking about endgame map choosing from the Tavern Talk with DM and Gazi TV.
It looks like there's a significant amount of ways to increase power on maps. How does the juicing compare to PoE 1 for endgame mapping? Now, we saw a lot of it in the reveal, but could you elaborate on it?
Well, so first things first, we definitely want to make sure that juicing is still a thing, right? Like before we did our whole endgame push, I think that in recent times, I think that would have been a big problem that we would have had, where there wasn't enough ways to juice maps. But I don't know that you'll be able to get to quite the level that you can get in PoE 1. Certainly, we want to make sure that it's big though. Like the more pack size really is like a way to make a player feel powerful, and so that's why we need to have ways of juicing pack size, and we've got ways of juicing pack size in the game. But then,
so you can see that juicing remains relevant in the endgame, while you need effective AoE skill to handle maps with overlapping mechanics and large pack size. Now, this means that during the campaign, focusing on good single target damage is essential. However, in the endgame, if you don't want to farm boss, you'll need a different approach. You may need to adapt your build to prioritize speed and AoE clearing skill, essentially becoming a strong mapper. This is another department where I could say range is better than melee again, and I'm sorry for melee enjoyer, but anything that involves speeds and clearing, range will have an advantage. Now, the main difference in PoE 2 though is that if you die during map, you'll lose the map. So this is where melee build has a chance to close the gap by being tankier. And on that topic, let's talk about the defense next. So this is another topic that was brought up by Kriparian, and I think we got our answer from Jonathan as well, so let me bring up the clip where he talked about it.
With life not on the passive tree, shout out to Kriparian for this one. Are some characters still going to potentially be significantly tankier than others as they are in PoE 1?
Yeah.
just to give some more context for the people watching, we're talking about the difference between, say, a CI versus Mind over Matter versus life stack and armor evasion, etc.
Yeah. So, I mean, you can still absolutely get life, from gear. But the main way that the tree is going to allow you to get to get tankier is effectively other effects like to do with defenses, right? So, armor, evasion, and so on. And there's quite a lot of stats around modifying those and doing different things with those. I think there is a lot of scope for that kind of thing. And I think it's more obvious to a new player that if you want to be defensive, then go for all this armor or evasion or whatever nodes. Like the whole breakdown of like some X% needs to be life or whatever, I think was confusing before. So effectively now, if you want to be more defensive, allocate those defensive nodes and you should be doing fine. We do want to make sure that you can feel a lot more defensive than some other characters for sure.
Based on my understanding, building defense is now a choice and requiring you to invest passive points in your preferred layers of defense, whether that'll be armor or evasion. Additionally, life, mana, or energy shield will now primarily comes from your equipment. This change makes it easier to set up your defensive layer. However, I can see that the evasion archetype will likely be weaker due to more susceptible to being one-shot, while the ammo archetype is likely to be a lot more durable during mapping. Now, ultimately, this means that you need to build your character more defensively, which means strong damage ascendancies will become very important later in the game. Allocating more passive points to defensive nodes will result in lower damage output, while investing fewer points in defense could lead to higher risk of dying when progressing your Atlas. Keep this in mind when you're picking the ascendancies because we can't change it during early access. The last thing I want to talk about is class complexity, and this one is quite simple. But a good reminder for endgame player that while it can be fun to play a complex class with combo and many flashy skill, Path of Exile is an RPG with a grindy endgame, and imagine playing for hours while having to think about your combo or skills on every map. It will get bored pretty quickly. Which is why some of the more simple archetype like Righteous Fire from PoE 1 is a lot more popular. It's definitely something to take into considerations, but might not be an issue at all because we'll have trigger gems and auto weapon swap. At the end of the day, you play what you like, and if you enjoy a class with flashy skill and combo, definitely go for that as well. The complexity will probably comes from your skills and weapon setup, which will figure out some OP combos, so I wouldn't worry about the endgame being a piano playstyle. I can see that the main weapon swap skill being used for tanky rares or boss, but maybe also vice versa, where the bossing build could use some interesting AoE skills to clear maps. Alright, so as promised, my class and ascendancy choice will be the Mercenary Witch Hunter. And in my next video, I'll break down the reason why as well, so hit that subscribe button if you're interested. With that, we have come to the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching. Please drop a like, comments below on what PoE 2 contents you'd like to see next, and I'll see you in the next video soon.